All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the More Smarter Show with your hosts Jake and Dylan. We have the pleasure right now to sit down with Frank Avallone virtually. He is a mortgage lender and a real estate investor that we've got to know pretty well in this business, and he's one of the people that really has his. I'm going to say the first curse word of the day, has his shit together in this business. And this is why we really want to sit down with him. He works more smarter in his business, and obviously he's also very smart with his own investments too. So
yeah, and what's cool about Frank is that we try not to just interview friends or interview local businesses or we don't want to make it easy and just interview people we know and that are local. But Frank sort of covers all those check boxes where he's a friend, he's a local business, and he's also someone who works more smarter. So we're really pumped to have him on. Frank, What's going on?
What's going on, guys? Appreciate it. Definitely happy to be here and excited.
Let's go. It's a sick library back there too. Love it.
Yeah, I got
to reading all day. So, Frank, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, your business background, and who you are?
Yeah, so Frank Avallone, like they said, real estate investor and mortgage lender. I actually got into the mortgage space through having the love for the investing. So I guess going back like 8 or 9 years now, I had a plan that I wanted to get into real estate investing. And the game plan was my brother and I both had it. Same thing. We're going to save up our money, get into real estate investing and, take it from there. And honestly, I didn't realize that there was going to be more involvement in the mortgage space and everything like that. But after doing the first investment or two, I was like, hey, I love this. I want to get more involved. How can I get more involved? And to make a longer story short, the guy who was mentoring my brother and I actually owned a mortgage company. And he said, hey, if you guys want, you can get licensed. I'll take you under my wing. And that's exactly what we did. And then haven't looked back since and just been really all hands on deck with real estate, like we said, in the investing space, then also in the mortgage space. And it's cool too, because they really do obviously go hand in hand, right? Like being a mortgage lender helps my investing, and investing helps being a mortgage lender and being more knowledgeable. And then all three of us have that in common where we do help a lot of first-time investors, first-time home buyers. And it's cool because we've all, we're at that stage where this is something that a lot of our friends, a lot of our family is going through. So if they can make a little bit more of a smarter, move up front and maybe do a house hack initially, like I did, it's huge. It really could be,
Yeah.
You don't want to say house hack in front of Jake because he gets a little too excited. That's kind of his coin thing there. But no, I totally see that in you, and then seeing the progression there is really cool. So when you said that you had a mentor that first got you started in the mortgage space, but you originally started investing in real estate. I know pretty much a decent amount of your background already, but for the audience, when you got started, you were only 21, right? How was that even a thing? How did that work?
So my brother's actually younger than I, and we got started when I was about 21. He was 19, and I guess the way that it actually shaked out was my dad had a company and he still has it, which is lawn care. So he does fertilizer, pesticide, seeding and stuff, and it's all in the Morris County area. And we did that all throughout high school, even before high school, and pretty much just worked as much as we could during high school, after high school, saved up money. And, he was on us to do that, to save, not to spend anything stupid. And he never invested in real estate, but he did have clients that invest in real estate, and he had family members that invest in real estate. And he would always tell us, literally from such a young age, you guys gotta make it a game plan to save up and then invest in real estate ASAP. So, we had that kind of ingrained in us. And then some of his clients, not full-blown mentors, but they did start to answer questions for us and help us. And, we would go to some of these sites that they were doing flips and while we were doing the lawn and stuff, and they were explaining the numbers. And my brother and I were this is crazy. You can take your money that you saved and invest it into something and then maybe sometimes double it or make a crazy return on it. So we were intrigued by it, from the start. And then the game plan was to save up. We thought 20% because we didn't understand, we didn't know all the mortgage rules and guidelines and all the kind of tricks there is. So we saved up 20%. We thought we were going to each put 10%. buy a house together, and then make that a multifamily and then rent out the other side. And then when we were trying to talk to different people, like going into real estate offices and believe it or not, because we were so young and we were walking into these real estate offices, a lot of them were just kind of brushing it off. We would go in, literally walk in person, which you guys probably think is funny because that doesn't really happen these days. But we would walk in person and say like, hey, like we're trying to get involved in real estate investing. Like, where do we start? Can someone help us? And honestly, like they kind of were just brushing us off and just saying, yeah, you know, like just give us your email, and then they would never get back to us. And then we eventually found an attorney, and they wound up introducing us to this guy, like I said, that was in the mortgage space. And he told us, hey, why don't we do, you know, the house hack, right? Like we didn't know what the house hacking was at the time either. And we did that. So instead of us buying one together, like I bought a house, he bought a house, and then that kind of kickstarted everything, because instead of doing 10% down and 10% down, we did 3.5% down each. Now we had 2 properties, and then we already had a good savings to buy the next one as a true investment with 25% down. So that's, that was kind of the key. I mean, like starting early definitely is a big advantage too, because, you know, you could, depending on your living situation, like let's say you're living home with parents or something, which we both were, you could, you know, save pretty easily, you know, even if you're not making that much money. Like we really didn't make much money, you know, and we're still able to save a good amount. It's like easier to save money back then making that than it is now making much more. But that's kind of the key. I think starting as early as possible.
That's really interesting that you guys, I didn't know you wanted to originally buy a place together. Yeah. Because when we're talking about working more smarter, it sounds like, I don't know if you intended like to really think that visionary when you guys decided, hey, let's not buy together, let's each buy our own. But that sounds like the more smarter way for sure from where you are now.
Without a doubt. Yeah, because like that's the thing. If we would have, because so for people who don't know the mortgage stuff, right? There is kind of like a cadence that you could and should follow if you don't own a home right now and then you want to eventually get into real estate investing, because you can't go buy an investment property and then turn around and then do something more. Like, let's say you saved up 25% to do an investment property. You go out, you buy that. Now, how are you going to turn around and have enough money to do the next one if it's for yourself?
I say that all the time.
Like, yeah. So the smarter way to do it is essentially make your first purchase for yourself and kind of queue it up to be an investment property, so you can take advantage of, you know, the primary residence mortgage options. Especially nowadays, there's a ton of grants, down payment assistance and stuff, which we didn't even do back then. But that's the thing. If we would have did it separately, we would have been pretty much stuck. We would have had one.
You would have moved so much slower. Yeah.
Like we would have probably had maybe not even a third or maybe even a fourth of what we have now because of just the way we did it, just the order we did it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is crazy, especially because you're doing the less down. I remember you originally said you saved up 20% down, I guess each, right?
No, we did like 10%. Like basically we thought, because we're gonna do 10% to make up 20. And it's funny too, because everyone thinks like 20%. And now I talk about it all the time, being in the mortgage space. But myself, I was thinking about this 20% number, but that 20% number really doesn't have too much relevance, because that's not the number you need for multifamily investing. And it's also not the number you need for a primary residence. So like, I don't know where we were getting 20% from, but
yeah, I mean, it's the PMI. That's what it is. And I mean, you're in the mortgage business, like how, like you pay PMI pretty much, I guess, for most of your properties, if not all of them. Is that something that is like worth avoiding if you can put more down?
Well, no. So we only did the first one for myself and one for my brother as like primary residence with minimal down. And then we still have those same mortgages. Like I still have an FHA and an FHA on those two. Everything else that we did have to eventually do 25% down and everything. So I don't have PMI on anything except for those first two. But do I think you should avoid it or be like scared of paying it? No, not at all. Because the thing is too, when you do a investment loan versus a primary residence loan, those interest rates are going to be a tick higher on the investment side than they are on the primary. So I talk to people about this a lot. It's like, it doesn't really matter what the fee is called. If it's still an expense for you, like you just need to get those expenses as low as possible. So a real example of that is, let's say you're buying an investment property and the rates, let's just say 7.5. But then if you were to buy that as a primary residence and live in it, that'd be 7, right? Let's just say. So you're saving 0.5%. So even if you're paying PMI, it's probably not going to be much of a difference in your overall like out-of-pocket expense. So depending on what your situation is, like, yeah, if you don't have the appetite to invest in real estate and you have 20% down and you're buying one home and you think you're going to live there forever, yeah, like maybe put down the 20%, you know. But if you have the investor mindset and you do want to invest in real estate or even invest in like stocks or anything like that, most of the time you can pretty much make more off your money than you would be by saving for PMI.
Yeah, totally. So to go a little bit deeper into your kind of history of real estate investing then, so you bought this first place at 21, multifamily, put 3.5% down an FHA loan. You then from there, you started buying properties with 25% down, or did you do the house hacking in almost every single house? It seems like you did the 25% down.
Yeah. So like I said, we only did the one house hack each, and then just did 25% down from there on out. Like we probably could have, leaned into that a little bit more. It is tricky though, because like, again, like on the mortgage side, like there is guidelines that try to prevent you from using, like really the primary residence mortgages to build a real estate portfolio. Depending on what your situation is, like you can do it. Like let's say you buy a 4-unit first, and then maybe your next one's a 3-unit and then a 2. Like you could probably, swing that, but we just didn't want to play any games. Like, we're obviously in the mortgage space, and we did intend to, like, we never thought about the alternative. So we thought we were gonna have to put down 25% the whole time. So that's what we did. Plus it gives you the ability to invest in other areas that you might not be able to live in or willing to live in. So, for example, if you need to work somewhere and you're commuting into work, maybe that area is expensive and you can't afford to live there. So then you kind of can't really do that, because on the mortgage side, when we look at that, that's one of the first things. Like, let's say you say, I want to go buy a investment property, or I want to buy a primary residence, use FHA in Newark. And then I say, all right, well, Dylan, like, you work for this company and you're reporting to Pennsylvania. How are you going to swing that? Like the mortgage underwriters aren't stupid. Like they know that's not going to live there. So that's something that people don't realize. And you do see a lot of this on like a lot of the real estate investing forums and groups and stuff, that they really try to lean into, like taking advantage of every little thing you can. And obviously I understand that mindset, but when you really do it in practice, like that is one of the things that frustrates me is like, they say, oh, you can get started in real estate investing with like no money, or you can get started with bad credit, this, that. Like, yeah, you can, but obviously like there's parameters in place that will make that a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, totally. So would you, if you were to go, not to cut you off, Jake, this is probably kind of go up.
It's probably a terrible question anyway.
What you're thinking is if you were to go back, I guess, working like more smarter with it, if you were to go back in time, would you, obviously you'd have to dabble in some houses, you would have to going back to what you were exactly just saying there, you would have to put 25% down. But if you were to go back and change it, would you want to do more house hacks like you did the first time and work more smarter with it and take advantage of not having to put more money down on these properties?
It's a good question. I don't know, because it's tough. Like, honestly, I guess it would depend, because, for example, we bought the first couple houses pretty quick. So right after we did that 1-and-1, we turned around in the same year and then bought one 25% down. So like, if we would have tried to wait that 1-year requirement that you need to wait with a primary residence, then how would we have done the next one, right? Like we would have had to wait a year, and then maybe that would have slowed us down. Maybe we would not have found like as good of an opportunity as we did find. The other thing too is like, it's like you could probably get away with maybe a few, but the other reality too is like you could only have one FHA mortgage at once, right? So like, let's say you use FHA to buy the first house hack, you wait the year, you live in it, and then you want to go use it again. If you still have this one, unless there's like job circumstances, like you're getting relocated for work, they don't let you have 2 FHA. So then like you need to switch to conventional, which is fine. You could still do minimal down, but like, again, like it's not as easy. But I would say, honestly, I wouldn't really change anything about the way that I did the actual investing. But what I would change was how we did a lot of stuff landlord wise. Like we made a lot of mistakes, not realizing like how to properly protect yourself in the beginning and how to vet the tenants correctly and why that matters. Like those were the bulk of the mistakes looking back was like really landlord mistakes, not so much maybe investing wise.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So I want to transition more into your lending business and how you work more smarter there. But before we do that, just cap off the real estate investing. You mind just giving us a recap of where you're at today with your portfolio?
Yeah. So right now between my brother and I, we have 6 multifamilies. I think it's like close to 20 units combined. We just sold 2 recently. So yeah.
All in North Jersey?
Yeah, all in North Jersey, pretty much,
Awesome.
you know, I'm definitely open to doing Pennsylvania probably next time around because I have been having a lot of clients do that, but yep.
Cool. So transitioning into the more smarter way to run your day-to-day, which is your mortgage business. You mind sharing some systems in place that you have? I know you have a ton of clients and you do a ton of business. So how do you manage all that with your systems?
Yeah, so big I guess a big focus really is exactly that, like systems. Like I'm very into the tech and I've always been into that, trying to learn what comes out, what's new, how to implement it into the business and how to just like save time and money as well. I think one of the best things I did early on in the mortgage career was from day one, I really dove full speed into headfirst, full speed into using a CRM. So nice. For people who, you know, aren't aware of what that is, basically just like a system to pretty much manage all of your clientele. And it's almost like a virtual whiteboard and you could operate from there online. Keeps everything really organized. I look around at like, you know, other mentors or other people in the business, coworkers, and I think that is something that does help my brother and I scale a little bit more quickly, just because you can only handle so much if you're not using one. Like just the 100%. Like if you're just trying to use, you know, I talk to people, realtors and stuff too, and they're like, oh, you know, right now we just use our phone, our iPhone notes, and I, you know, take a note there of who's reaching out and like what their name is and stuff. And like you could definitely have that work, but again, like it depends where you're trying to go with the business. Like I'm trying to, you know, scale like as high as you possibly can. And I know from talking to, you know, my mentors and stuff like that, like you can't do that, right? You can't run it out of like your notes. You can't have a notepad. And while that might work for people, I still don't think it's the most optimal. So that was the big thing, like from day one, importing my contacts right into that CRM and then living by it. Like every single lead I ever got, you know, even if I was on the go or on vacation or whatever, like I make a note and I put that lead or whatever into the CRM. And then same thing, like even with all, you know, business partners, attorneys, realtors, CPAs, all of this, it's all in the CRM. So everything's super organized. And like, I am pretty particular with that, and everything's tagged in certain pipelines and stages, and there's cadences for every little thing. So I think that really is one of the biggest things that I've done well.
Wow. Nice. What CRM do you use?
I use Go High Level.
Me too.
Yeah.
I really like it. Yeah.
Yeah. I love it. It's not, I would say like there's definitely a learning curve. It's not so easy to kind of build out, but what's really cool is you could literally do almost everything and anything in there. And the sky's the limit with, you know, how crazy you can get with it.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the biggest things that I kind of run into is I have too many things. I have like a MailChimp account. I have a Go High Level account. I also do like Google Sheets. I track a decent amount of stuff. I used to have a follow-up boss. So like I had a whole bunch of things and I was all scatterbrained. So is that something like you're able to send like your newsletter out, do texts, like you're able to do literally everything from that?
Yeah. Yeah. So I did the same exact thing though. I'm like literally up until probably even maybe a year and a half ago, same thing. Like I was getting almost, I joke around with this, but I was literally almost getting too organized where I was trying to track everything so fanatically that I had a spreadsheet here with like this, and then I had a certain section here with this, like same thing. I had a bunch of different systems. And like I would actually even keep like iPhone notes of clients that are active right now, because I wanted to be able to like do it on the go a little bit more easy. But then, like you said, like then it's so hard because you don't have one, you know, center of focus. And since I switched away from that and really doing everything through the CRM, like it's night and day difference. I really advise everybody, like try to just, you know, it doesn't have to be Go High Level, obviously, but there's a ton of good CRMs out there that if you're in any business, you know, mortgage lending, real estate agent, insurance, attorney, like you should all be really using one.
Yeah, and CRMs are helpful for like a nucleus of information, and that's what I use it for as well. And then it sounds like the way you're describing you use it is also for like lead generation, sort of, just like to like sort of, right? Like you have outbound going from your CRM, and you also have notes from any past conversations you've had with different contacts. So I think so many podcasts, books, trainings talk about how to get leads, and I want to talk to you, Frank, about how to be great, right? So not lead generating. And I'm sure you use the CRM, for example, for other things. And like you already mentioned, you track each deal from where they are, probably color coded or however the CRM works. But like, how do you be great to so many people at the same time?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think the answer is that the CRM, like, because people don't realize that I try to make it seem like every person I'm dealing with, like client wise, is almost like my only client, but like unfortunately, or like fortunately, actually, unfortunately, it's not. And at one time you could have so many, like you could be having literally hundreds of different conversations at once, and it is really hard to keep track. So the big thing that I do is like I'm very big with taking notes of everything. A lot of times too, I'll even record conversations. So I have that thing where like when you jump on a call, like you would with pretty much any other, bank that you're dealing with, it says the call is recorded. If they have a problem with that, then obviously, I don't do it. But if they don't have a problem with it, I record it, and then you can even transcribe that. So you can have notes based on that. Because a lot of times what happens is, you're dealing with thousands of people, honestly, and you might have a conversation today, and then you had a bunch of different things going on. And 2-3 months later, maybe even 6 months to a year later, that person calls you. They remember you because you were the only lender, the only realtor, the only insurance guy they spoke with. But on the flip side, like we might not remember them because there's so many people. But having those little notes, like, hey, she said this, she said that, like then it will click. So keeping really good notes of everything that's going on. And I like to do it in order of what's happening. So if someone comes to me and says, hey, I'm trying to get a mortgage, my credit's not good. All right, I make a note of that. They need credit repair. I send them to credit repair people, and then I have note, okay, did they sign up with the credit repair or did they not? What are they doing? And like every little checkpoint, I just put a little note. I try to keep it concise, so I'm not writing paragraphs every time, and just then you can always check back and see what exactly is going on. And that's the way that, when someone calls you, as soon as you have it come to the CRM, you could pull up their notes, and within like 30 seconds, you know exactly what's going on with that person. So I do the same thing even with now, like this is something I recently did in the last year. I do it even with my business partners, because again, trying to scale that, like, the more realtors I can work with, the more attorneys, the more title, the more everybody I can work with, essentially the bigger and the better. So even taking notes on that, like, okay, how many leads did I get from this person, and how many leads did I give them? And that keeps track too, or helps you keep track of what's going on and like where your relationships are at in kind of cadence of like development. So for example, like, let's say I'm working with Dylan and I'm tracking everything that he sends. Like, oh, Dylan sent me this lead, this lead, this lead. I take note of that, and then I say, okay, well, he sent me 10 leads. This person sent me 5. Like, what I need to send some leads back to Dylan now, because keeping organization, you'll now know that. But if you just have leads coming in from everywhere, you're not even going to really know who's your like good lead sources or good referral sources. And then honestly, it's easy to lose relationships like that, because if you're not showing them attention, or if you're not giving back to them, or you're not helping them grow, then your business kind of can just easily fall flat. So that's the big thing. And like, what the biggest thing that I've taken away from my mentor in the mortgage space is his whole premise was, how are we going to help the attorney? How are we going to help the realtor? How are we going to help the insurance guy grow? And if we can do that, then obviously we're going to grow in turn. So like everything is just kind of strategized based off that. And then keeping notes too, like, hey, for example, like, does Dylan have this set up yet? Did we do this yet? Did we do that yet? And like having it go through kind of an order of like where I know will help people grow, checking in on if they're doing that, and then just kind of like implementing it. So really, again, just like the organization does pretty much help everything.
Yeah. I think I could relate to that. Just I'll wear my realtor hat for now, and I can totally relate. Every time I talk to a client, I put my notes in my CRM, which is the same as yours. I record things. Gemini takes notes, all those things. And I have really good memory, not real memory, but my CRM has really good memory for that reason. But what I find on my, as a realtor is that's a good realtor, but a great realtor also doesn't miss when your client's rate lock expires, or if you're the buyer's agent, making sure the seller's agent got the CO. Shit that people don't think about because it's not really in my category as a buyer's agent, and no CRM can really do that for me, because I want to just get away from lead generating. I want to talk about like being like dotting the I's and crossing the T's. And Frank, I think you're really good at not missing small details. But again, I think good agents or good lenders, really good ones, can even miss small details, but the great ones don't. So do you have like anything, do you have like a assistant or anything that helps you be that way? Or is it just kind of in your brain or what?
Yeah, for sure. Like, so just like with every business, like as you start scaling up more and more, like you do eventually need help, right? So
yeah,
like I have an assistant or assistants, and they'll essentially do a lot of the stuff that I guess isn't like money-making activities, right? For my business, right? So for example, like I know, and it's the same way for a lot of real estate agents stuff, that the money-making activities are really networking, connecting with people, conversations with potential clients, conversations with just potential local influencers, stuff like that, right? Going out there and actually like building that relationship and helping people. But what's not going to essentially help that is like collecting documents, right? Like for example, during the mortgage process, depending on what your situation is, you might have to upload, I don't know, maybe like 5-10 different sets of documentation. And if you're a couple purchasing a home, that's 20 different documents that we got to make sure are all, given to us. So having people that can help out with all of these activities is key, so that you can try to focus on the ones that you excel at and the ones that are money making and the ones that you enjoy as well. So that's a big part of it. And then for, like you said, about not missing those moments, even like stupid little stuff does go such a long way. Like I have this system built into like my mortgage software that every checkpoint throughout like the transaction, it'll update the buyer and the seller's agent on what's going on. So it'll automatically send an email out from me and say, hey, appraisal was just ordered. We just got the mortgage commitment. We just got out of underwriting. Like we got the clear to close. All these different systems, like all these different like kind of check marks. I think it's good because like you said, like if you are the first one to send that out to everybody and you're the one that's updating people, like it just feels like you're so on top of everything. And then everyone else that's involved in the transaction doesn't have to wonder. Then the other big thing that I really realized is like, you'll have to work less by getting ahead of stuff because you don't have to answer questions. So if I don't give, like, let's say we're going through a transaction and I don't give anybody an update and the appraisal is ordered, the realtor doesn't know, the commitments or not, like no one knows anything. What's going to happen is they're going to call you and they're going to say, hey, like, when's the appraisal getting ordered? Where's this? Where's that? Where are we? Like, then you have to do more work essentially. So not only do you look bad, but you have to also work harder now. So like getting ahead of it and having those systems is key.
Yeah, more harder, and it's not organized work at all. It's all coming inbound, and you're like, you get all scatterbrained from that. Yeah. Wow. So I've gotten multiple of those from you, or those emails that are just like, yeah, appraisal's been ordered and like they should be reaching out to you shortly, or all that sort of stuff. Have you ever had a time where you tried to systematize something in your business and it went wrong? For example,
100%.
I as a realtor I did like an automatic property search on the MLS that I was sending to a potential client. I was trying to work with them, and I set them up exactly what they said. But you know how, automatic MLS search isn't always completely accurate. So it'd send them properties that weren't exactly what they wanted. And almost immediately after it's sent out, they responded saying like, oh, this doesn't have a first floor bedroom, or, oh, this isn't an updated kitchen. And it like made me look really bad. And it sent out maybe 3 times. And then I turned it off after they kept doing that, because I was like, this is just messing me up. And then that was like one of the reasons why they didn't want to work with me, is because they said that I didn't even know what they were looking for, which is like is fair, but I also, it's on me for doing the bad setup. So, I mean, something similar to that is, or am I the only one there?
No, definitely. I mean, like that's the thing. Every time I try to implement something, when you first implement it, there's going to be trial and error and there's going to be mistakes, right? Like, so that's why, for example, like if let's say I'm building out like a new automation in the CRM or something, I'll test it as much as possible on like a small group before I roll it out to like larger groups. But in the beginning, like I used to make those mistakes all the time. Like I would set up an automation and I would just have it wrong. And then like you would send out a random text and it would just not be relevant. Like, you know what I mean? Like it'll just say, hey, like this is Frank, like some, you know what I mean? Like sometimes you could like double type something or you have like those cues for what it says and it'll just pull in random stuff. And then it obviously looks like you're automating it. But I think honestly, like with a lot of this stuff is like, you do have to go through trial and error, right? So like with technology in general, when you're implementing stuff or when you're building it out, I really noticed that like the big theme is everything technology wise is way harder up front to adapt to. But then once you get that established, like everything else is now easier once that's set in place, right? So for example, like let's say you're a realtor that's been in the business for 20 years and maybe you're 50, 60 years old or whatever, and the CRMs weren't as around when you started, and now you realize you need to adapt to it. You might not want to, because obviously to go for, you know, someone who has a business for 20, 30 years and put it into a CRM, it's going to take months. Like it's going to take honestly months, maybe even a year to like get that all the way built. But again, like if you do that now, year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like all the way from there on out is going to be easier. So it's kind of like one of those things where like it's hard at first, and then once you get to, you know, having it established, it's now making everything easier.
Yeah, I think communication is just so huge. So Dylan, that solves what your problem you had, and Frank, it's also about what you were saying, right? Like, it's okay for me, it's okay to tell my client, hey, I'm trying out this automation, or I'm trying out this, you know, you're going to get an email every day from the MLS. I haven't looked at them yet. We're getting it for the first time at the same time. LOL, we'll figure it out. Like, you know, as long as you are ahead of communication and what I call over communicating, to me, that is what someone who's great would do in all businesses.
I agree completely. Like, I think that I used to be afraid of being so because I came from more like a blue collar background, and then going into this where it's like banking, like there's almost like a lot of stress that, you know, you need to be like so proper. And like, you know, if you call like one of the big banks, like they have like a script that they're reading you, it sounds robotic.
Yeah.
But I like, again, like this wasn't until kind of more recently that I did realize exactly what you're saying, Jake. Like everyone's just like a person. Like I could mess up, send Dylan or Jake or anything, a stupid text right now. And then I could be like, hey buddy, like I was just trying, you know, trying something new. Like, how did it come across? What do you think? Like same thing, even with clients, like they're people as well. So they're not stupid that you're trying to grow a business and operate a business. Right. And if they don't understand that, then it kind of is what it is. But just being more casual, I think, was another big thing that helped me a lot. I used to really try to go with like the scripts and like, hey, like this is Frank reaching out from so-and-so. But if you kind of keep it, and again, this is my opinion, like if you keep it more casual in a way that it would be the same thing if someone just came up to you at like a bar or at a barbecue, like how are you going to talk to them? You're not going to turn around and say, hey, you know, this is so-and-so from EXP. Like you would just talk to them and basically answer their questions. So keeping it more casual, I think, does help. And especially these days, because now everyone in our age group, people who are buying, people who are even maybe selling or whatever, they are all kind of in tune with being a lot more casual.
Yeah, no, totally. And I feel like I've personally like thrived through like being very like open and like vulnerable towards that sort of stuff. And it's just like, yeah, I'm going to show up to $1 million showing with a t-shirt on. That's just like me. And, you know, maybe I won't do it for a first time client, but some of these other people are like, these clients are showing up in sweatpants too. So it's like, why do I have to act fake to try and impress you when that's not something that would impress you? It's just like, I'm trying to play a fake part.
On that note, I think it depends how you found this client, right? Are they your friend, or are they some lead that clicked on you? And those are different things. And that leads me to my question towards Frank, who is a lender. So Frank, as realtors, we, at least our business model, Dylan and I, is not, we don't like pay for leads. So we work with primarily either our friend/family or someone referred from a friend or family. So someone we're not really trying to impress, it's essentially, and someone we have some sort of relationship with. But you as a lender will work with the realtor's friend. That's not your friend, right? So that's not someone you know. So how does that differ, I guess, in your communication? Like, do you still think you can be casual and cool and yourself, or does that change things?
Well, I think what you just said is very true. Like one of the biggest things that I have realized, and I'm still learning, is like you do have to get good at reading people, right? Like you could read the room and see what kind of like the vibe is. Not to sound stupid, but if they call you and they're very proper, like maybe you do kind of like tone it up a little bit and be a little bit more proper. And again, like that's one of the big things. And like you take these like sales classes and psychology and stuff, and they say that you do ideally want to kind of match the vibe of what's going on. So again, like if you're showing up to a wedding and everyone's in suits and tuxedos and you're in a t-shirt, doesn't really make sense, right? But if everyone's in a t-shirt and it's on the beach, like then it makes sense. So it's the same exact thing where I feel like, depending on the realtor too, like sometimes I'm working with realtors that I know for a fact everyone they're dealing with is super proper, very business oriented. There's no games, there's no messing around, there's no jokes. And like, you kind of have to know that. And then sometimes I know that no matter what, like it's going to be a casual situation, and it doesn't have to be unprofessional, but you don't have to keep it like, you don't have to keep it crazy. And same thing with what Dylan said about like showing up to the $1 million listing and like in a t-shirt is like, first of all, like you said, depends on the client, depends on what the norm is for that area. And then also it's like, just because it's a t-shirt doesn't mean that it's not like clean. Like you don't want to show up covered in dirt.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? But if you're like well put together, like, it's the same thing. And I don't know, I guess that is kind of a hard one to navigate, but like the old school, because like the old school banking mindset is like, you should show up for your client in a suit and tie. Like all the old school mortgage lenders, like that is the vibe that you're going for. But what I find, I used to do that in the beginning, but I think it's almost intimidating. If you have a client come in and they're in shirts, t-shirts and sweatpants, and then you're walking in a suit, it's kind of like,
totally,
it's weird.
Yeah.
So the question is almost like, should you match what they expect of you, or should you just be who you are and they'll adapt to it?
Yeah, I guess that is a hard one, because then I think like you hear both ends, right? So like we said, the sales psychology is that you really, ideally, if you're just going for sales, like you should match the tone, match like everything that you possibly could about the person, try to come to a common interest early on in the conversation and lean in that. But then the other thing that I think a lot of people don't realize is also it's reputation. So if you've been in the business for a while and you have a ton of great reviews and everyone's talking so highly about you, everyone's going to be more accepting of whatever you want to do if that overall establishment is already set in place. So like if you know, like this guy's the best realtor ever, and then he shows up in a t-shirt, like it might not matter. It's like no one knows anything, and like now you're skeptical, and then they show up. Maybe for that person, like they're not going to like that. Like even for myself, like if I truly like think about it, and not to be like weird or whatever, I still do think that I would prefer people to like act a little bit more professional than not. But again, like if the person is doing really well at their job, you just can't argue with that.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what I mean? Like that's the same thing. If like I'm talking to someone on the phone and they don't know what the hell they're talking about, and then I meet them in person and they're just like not looking professional, I would care about that. But like, let's say in Dylan's example, I talk to him, I know him, I know he knows his stuff, and then I meet him, I don't care how he's dressed. I'm not even looking at that, because like his first impression was his knowledge, not his dress code.
Correct.
Yeah. So that's a big thing too, I guess.
Yeah. It's brand recognition. And I think what I try to to thrive on is being myself. And that is someone who's always professional and reliable and trustworthy. You can't say I was ever dishonest or, let you down in some way that I could control, but I removed myself from the result. So it might not be the same result you wanted, but I did my best. Right. But my brand, I think for me, is like former teacher, former coach, somewhat more casual, yet professional and really knowledgeable. And because which Dylan has heard me say on previous episodes, have like a really, really, really in-depth, I'll use a buyer as an example, as an agent. I have a really, really in-depth buyer consultation that we've already built that trust. So by the time we actually meet in person or at a house, they know what I know. They know that I care. And that's most important. So it doesn't matter what I wear at that point. And those are the people I choose to work with.
I think we literally just like solved the answer to the question like just now. Like, I think it really is that. Like it's the value that you bring overall. So if your only value is coming to the meeting in a suit, but then you don't know anything about what we're talking about, like it doesn't matter what you're wearing or you know what I mean? So
but the problem is with a lender, with you though, you kind of just like, you never meet them most of the time. So we have an intimate relationship with our clients because like we're going in this all together. Yeah. You have I'm sure some deals are different than others, but like you're kind of from afar, right? So it's just a different approach. I'm just thinking as we're talking, like being a realtor and a lender, just way different approaches with what personality we need to bring to the table for our clients.
So you're really good point. Yeah, I mean, so for example, most times I'm not meeting the client, maybe even ever, or sometimes not till the closing or whatever. So that's a good point. I think the other thing that I've came across on like this same note is even age. So especially when I first started and when it is a little bit more evident that you don't know as much on the early stages, that's like a big struggle. Is I almost feel like I had to like look more professional, do all of that early on because again, like the other stuff is lacking. So if you're like, let's say you're young and you're new in the business and then like you try to, go for that $2 million listing for the 65-year-old that's selling and they're retiring or whatever, that might be hard. But if you have that conversation with them and they know that you know what's going on, some of them still may just not want to go with a younger person like us, but a lot of people will value just the fact that and again, like people can tell what's going on. And that's honestly a lot of times how I'll like quote unquote like win over a client if they're shopping around is if they're talking to 3 or 4 different lenders. Most lenders are not explaining like the pros and the cons of what's going on. Like I'm telling them, look, like this is some of the BS that other lenders are trying to do. Just watch out for this fee, watch out. Like, and then even explain like the process thoroughly too. It's like, okay, look, like there's a lot of talk about waiving the appraisal. Like you understand that, like, how does this work for you financially? I'm looking at your finances and this would make sense. That wouldn't make sense. Like if you take the deep dive, they're going to appreciate that or if I just call them on the phone and say, hey, yeah, Jake just sent you over, like, just, fill out this form and I'll talk to you later. Like that's probably not going to do it because then what are you bringing to the table versus the other person?
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. And then also for repeat business too, especially just like Jake was saying, like we know that if we continue to do all the CRM stuff, like sending the newsletter, following up consistently, doing all the happy birthday stuff like that, and we service them well because we've been to 20 houses with them and we went to the holiday party and all that sort of stuff because we have that in-person relationship, it's different. We know we're going to get that listing in 10 years from now. But for you, for not having that in person, it's like a different kind of follow-up system almost because you don't have that in person. So do you like try to like go to the closings and meet them, or is there anything that you specifically try to do to kind of get in front of them?
Yeah, I mean, I've even played around with this, like strategy-wise, like initial phone call. Initially, I used to try to just do like the most thorough initial phone call like ever, like explain every little thing. And then like as I was getting busier and like trying to scale up, I was like, okay, well, I can't be spending an hour with every single person up front. So then like I would try to go on a shorter method and say, all right, like maybe just like we said, like send the application first, then go. So I played around with different methods of kind of what works and what doesn't work, but I do still think that overall from what I've experimented with that like you do need to have that really good first conversation. And then you do need to make sure that you're there in their face for any questions that come up. Right. Because again, like because I think Dylan, you said this earlier on, like, or maybe it was Jake, but you said that you're trying to almost do the job of like literally everybody in the transaction lightly, right? Like, and the same thing, like for me too, like, because I don't know, sometimes I'm working with an agent that I never worked with, or I'm working with an attorney that I never worked with. So I'll touch base on everything they should be looking for or aware of. And then that goes a long way too. If I'm like, hey guys, like, just so you know, the next part of the process is we're going to be scheduling the appraisal. The way that works is, you know, the appraiser is going to send you a link to get the payment, and then they call your realtor. Like, even explaining that kind of stuff so that they don't have to like wonder, and you're just always ahead of what's coming next. I think that that's like kind of how I stay in touch with them. But obviously, if it's a situation where they're pre-approved, same thing though. Like, when every single person I have that's pre-approved, and unfortunately in this market, it does start to like stack up because not everyone could just find a house easily. I am reaching out to everyone every, 7 to 10 to 15 days, just checking in, saying, hey, you need me to run any numbers for you? Any questions that you have, anything you're hearing out there that you want some clarity on? Like, and I think that goes a long way too, because that's also something that I like re-implemented now. In the beginning, I used to be able to manually like just remember who my pre-approvals were and then text them. But now I revert to the CRM, and like all that stuff is organized, so I can look at my list and say, these people are, pre-approved. Last time I texted them was 7 days ago. I got to text them again. So doing that kind of stuff too, to just stay in front of them, just letting them know that you're here for them, goes a long way. Because on the flip side, people will come to me after talking with another lender. I have the first kind of consultation with them. They're like, wow, like none of this was explained to us. I'm like, great. That's awesome. And then I send them the pre-approval, I send them the details, and then I talk to them again. And then 7 days later, I'm saying, how's the search going? Like, whereas the next guy might just send that pre-approval and just try to go find the next person, not ever talk to them again. So that's, it is different for both of us, because you guys get to see them every day and go see houses with them. So it gets a little bit more personal quickly.
Yeah, totally. Frank, what I know that you do a great job of, I'm talking now more in terms of lead generating, is being, and I'm talking about social media mostly, but I also know you in person, but even from afar at social media, being an investor first. And we started this episode about your investing career and house hacking and buying a few properties with your brother and without, and that, like, I don't even care or know. I don't know or care if you have lending knowledge because I know that you have investing knowledge. Right. So I know that if I'm buying an investment property, or if my client is, or even if it's not an investment property, I know you've done it before. I know you could be trusted with it. And as an owner of a HOA management company, we try to do that as well. And I actually thought of you, like your style. I think it's the more smarter style, which is like, we're not, when someone approaches us as a lead for HOA property management, we're not even talking about managing the property, which is what they're asking for. But we're talking about our experience of being a condo owner and what we liked about our management company and what we didn't like. And that closes business. So this isn't a question. I just wanted to say that I noticed you do that, and it's more smarter, and it's great.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, I think that that's always kind of key, right? If you could give out just information and not feel like you need to profit off somebody, you could literally be selfishly not selfish, right? Like, so for example, I know for a fact that if someone calls me and they want to talk to me for 45 minutes about how to get started in investing, but they're realistically 3 to 5 years away, I'm willing to have that conversation. Two main reasons. And one was like really good that I learned right off the bat was same thing for me. Like the guy who did my first mortgage, and he's my mentor and he's still my boss today, is like my brother and I were 21 and 19. And like no one else was willing to give us the time of day. No one else was willing to even sit down with us and explain investing or anything like that. And I didn't know at the time who this guy was. I didn't know like how successful he was. I didn't know he had a massive business. Like I didn't know any of this stuff. So here I am just thinking like, okay, cool. This guy's willing to meet with us. At that time, my brother and I were working really long hours with the lawn care. So we would literally wake up like 5 a.m., be at work, and then work all the way until it got dark, no matter what time that was. And when we were getting started, it was summer, so it was getting dark late. This guy literally met with us at 9 p.m. at his office to accommodate a 21-year-old and a 19-year-old that said they wanted to get involved in real estate investing.
I would never do that.
But like, think about it like this. This is what's so funny about it is like he did that. He set us on the trajectory. He did all of our first mortgages. Now we work for him, like all because he was willing to just take that time. So like, look at like he was honestly being like selfishly unselfish, and it benefited everybody. Like
best ROI on that 1 hour.
And then if that reputation goes on, like that's what eventually will put that, money in your pocket. Is like everyone knows, hey, that guy, you can go to him for anything. He'll help you out. Doesn't matter if you're a client or not. And I tell people too, like, look, if your brother or your uncle or whatever is a lender and you want to give them the business, I'll still answer your questions. I'll review your paperwork for you. I'll do whatever you want me to do and just be there for you. Because maybe when their other friend comes to get a house, they'll send them to me, not the other. Like, and that happens a lot too. Like sometimes people don't even use me because they have a cousin or they have an uncle or whatever, but then they'll send their family and friends to me and not that other person, just because I was willing to help them.
Yeah, I mean, I love that, and that's kind of one thing that I ran my business, I guess, through for the first 2 years. Now it's been like 2.5, a little bit over that now for me. And I was actually doing a video, like a videographer was hired, and they were kind of doing like a showcase of me as a realtor. And he was like, all right, just like talk about like how you're like value yourself as a realtor. And I like, honestly, I literally got stumped because I was like, okay, yeah, I mean like the basics. Okay. I could break down all of the process of buying and selling a house and what to look for. I know the construction background, all that sort of stuff. Like I didn't even think of that. I went out the window. The guy was like, oh, like you're always available. You're a young kid. You're always available. I was like, dude, that sucks. I hate that. I don't want that. And it's like, I don't want that for my brand, but I also like all of my friends know that I'm always available. Like I've had my friends call me at 11 p.m. and we've been on the phone for an hour and a half if they had any like shit that they were going through. So I want that, yes, but I also don't want that.
So it's different if they're going through shit than if they're buying a house.
Yeah.
It's a little different to be available.
But when you, Frank, when you say that, when you're like, oh yeah, like I'm available, or for your boss now at meeting at 9 p.m. is like, that's not scalable. That's not working more smarter. So yes, there's like a give and take where it's okay, I want to help out. I want to be that awesome dude and that stand-up guy. But at the same time, I can't do this for everyone. How do I make this more systematic and make it more smarter?
Yeah, and that's something too that I literally do work on, because I say the same thing. Like I could barely go through dinner without like getting my phone blowing up and just like getting calls and stuff as I'm trying to eat. But what I do think is like same thing to what we're talking about being casual and just being honest is like, if you just get back to somebody, but you tell them that you are busy at the moment, like that's just as good as having a conversation with them, right? So like, let's say someone calls you and then you can't answer because you're in a meeting. And then you know that you have meetings back to back to back, all these calls scheduled. You're realistically not going to be able to talk to them until tomorrow. If you just don't take that call and then call them tomorrow, like you're pretty much screwed. They're not gonna want to work with you. But if you just text them and say, hey, I'm in a meeting right now, I got a lot of stuff going on, how's tomorrow look around 10 a.m.? Like you still got back them. Like you basically kind of like scratch that itch of like whatever they wanted to talk to you about.
Totally.
You put it on, you kind of put it on hold for now. And unless it's urgent, that's the thing. Like that's what I do think is scalable. So for example, in that situation, maybe it was something where like, actually knowing him now, like he kind of breaks his day up differently, where like he has a morning session with his kids and then he goes to work and he's full speed during work. And then he does a little bit of like a break and he, goes back with his family, eats, and then he kind of turns back on business wise until he's, getting ready for bed. So for him, maybe he was just willing to do that because like that worked for his schedule and he was cool with it. But also like he could have, and I think he, I don't even remember the details, but he probably said like, hey, like, can you guys make another time work? And maybe we said no. And then if we said no, then he knows, okay, well, either I can't work with these guys or like there's really no, or I have to do it.
Yeah, you
So
have to accommodate another schedule.
you don't have to take every single call, but like you can sometimes. Like I have that happen all the time. Like same thing. Like last night, this realtor called me and he was like, hey, can you help me? I have something to talk about. Like, did I really want to? Maybe no, but like if he said he really needed to talk, I'm willing to have that 5-second conversation. And then the other thing too is like you got to get good with managing those calls. Like not every call could be like a BS session for 30 minutes. Like sometimes it's like, dude, what's going on? Put it to bed and then just kind of you can BS tomorrow. Like so that's the other thing too.
Yeah, that's one of my problems. Honestly, I'm like too friendly with a lot of my clients, and they just want to chat for like 30 minutes, and it's like, all right, it's 2 p.m. on a Saturday. I'm in between showings, dude. I gotta run.
Yeah.
But to kind of cap this off a little bit, you're clearly working more smarter with your business. You are systematizing everything. You're making sure that you're doing great service because you're organized and you're having all these checkpoints, and this kind of like can grow pretty crazy, right? So where do you see yourself in the next like 10 years working more smarter? Do you see yourself running this outstanding mortgage company where you're closing like tens of millions a month in loans, or do you see yourself kind of slowing down and systematizing it where you're working a certain amount of hours a day and you're making the appropriate amount of money for that you're satisfied with and doing other ventures maybe?
Yeah, I really do go kind of back and forth, but I do think honestly, like that is kind of what I want to do. Like I do want to scale this up as high as I possibly can. And then same thing, like I'm not forgetting about real estate investing. So the main reason why I want to scale income in general is just so that I can just rapidly invest. And then, if that turns into just having a really successful mortgage business and then funneling all that money into the investing, what's cool about that is at like a certain point, it gets to be where you can just do what you want and kind of like when you want. So then, for example, like if you just kind of, I'm not saying like I would ever want to stop, right? But what you could do at that point is you could just be more honest, like we just said. Hey guys, like I'm on vacation this week. My assistant's available. Give them a call. I'll get back to you next week. If it's something urgent, let me know. I want to really do that because right now, for example, like I go on vacation and I try to make it seem like I'm not on vacation. I don't tell anybody. I don't post anything. I'll still answer everyone's calls. Is it ideal for business? Yeah. Is it ideal for life? No. But as like I scale that higher and then kind of scale the investing, that's kind of more where I'm trying to shift. And I would eventually like to have like a large team under myself and my brother on the mortgage side and just help people grow in that space, because I am like a big proponent of being involved in these types of careers that you can scale. And it's basically based off like your performance, your efforts. I would like to eventually like kind of inspire people to take that route, because one of the things that used to frustrate me with other jobs was I would say, hey, if I'm putting in the most effort, I would always get frustrated that I'm making the same as this other person that's at the same job title, right? Like if we're both doing X job title, but I'm doing 10 times more work, like why am I not getting 10 times more money? So I like this method and these career types where like it is about that. If you think you're, I said the same thing to I'm saying it like to myself. I was like, all right, well, if I think I'm good and I'm efficient, I'm like willing to work harder than everyone, well, I'm like, let's see. Like, you know what I mean? Like this is a career type where you really could kind of see. So I think it'd be cool to kind of just like do that, like help people realize that that's a possibility, help them scale, kind of teach them what I learned, what's good, what's not. And then same thing with the investing. Like I would like to have I think everyone in our profession should try to invest in real estate if possible,
Yeah.
Totally. Wow. Love that. That was great. Frank, this was an outstanding interview and podcast. I love sitting down and always talking with you. So, is there any last words, I guess you would kind of want to talk about before we wrap this up?
No, I appreciate you guys having me on. It's always a pleasure speaking with you guys. I know, obviously we do talk, a ton, and it's always good to have other people that are like-minded. I like that you guys are both, an investor mindset and always trying to kind of add new things to the business. And that's what's cool about our 3 relationships, is just like we do touch base with each other and talk about what's working, what's not working, what are we trying, and what we can implement. So I appreciate the time and having me on.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Frank.
Absolutely.
Right. Thank you guys. Keep it up.
Wait, Frank, where do the people find you? Before we
I think Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff is at Frank Avallone, FrankAvallone.
Let's
Well
go.
done.
Give it a
Awesome,
follow.
guys. Thanks a lot.
Hold on.